After 2 excruciating months of delays, as well as tons of complaints from the game's community, Limbus company has finally been blessed with the release of the 6th Walpurgisnacht. This event has added new battles, new achievements, and, most importantly, new identities that can shake up the game's meta. The 2 new units have 2 sets of skills each, and the new ego complements Don Quixote's kit quite well. And today we won't be talking about Rodion just yet, as first I want to look into the strength of the new In the Name of Love and Hate Don identity and ego. To do that, I'll briefly go over the identities kit, and then look at her performance in combat, alongside other Charge and Envy Resonance identities. After that, we'll take a look at the ego, its standalone strength, and how it complements the Queen of Hatred Dawn identity. But before we start, and don't skip this one, I have a very important announcement. Have you ever wanted to talk to me, or to other viewers of this channel, as well as people from all around the world that are interested in Limbus company? Well, now you can. Introducing the Barbershop, my brand new community Discord server, filled with Barber Otis, and more Barber Otis. Here you can talk to people, share memes, art, and... do I really need to explain to you what a Discord server is? Just go join it. Link is in the description, in the pinned comment, in the newest post, and in my channel description. Basically, it's everywhere. Oh, and also subscribe to the channel, please. Alright, let's get into the new Don Quixote. First, we'll start with her kit. In the Name of Love and Hate Dawn is an identity with OK health and high speed. Her Sin Affinity spread consists of Wrath and Envy, with Envy appearing in her Skill 2, Skill 3 and Defense. Dawn has 2 sets of skills, and I will be going over each skill in both of its forms before moving on to the next one. Her basic first skill rolls up to 17 and gains coin power when consuming love-hate count, and when Dawn has high love-hate potency. On use, Dawn gains 3 love-hate count. On hit with the second coin, she gets 3 more love-hate count and inflicts 3 rupture. As for her negative skill 1, it rolls up to 15, gets base power from the same conditionals, and also gives love-hate count on use and on hit. It additionally deals more damage based on Hysteria on Dawn, makes Dawn lose 5 SP and inflicts sinking instead of rupture. Dawn's basic skill 2 rolls up to 18, deals extra damage based on love-hate potency, consumes love-hate count to get coin power, and gives Dawn love-hate count on use. The coins of the skill give more love-hate count, inflict 2 rupture, and also inflict Mark of Villainy next turn. The negative version of the skill rolls up to 18 as well, consumes and gains love-hate count much like the positive version, but also makes Dawn lose SP, gains base power based on Hysteria, and at 3 Hysteria, the skill also gains 1 attack weight, although it deals half damage to the second target. The coins of the skill mimic those of the base skill 2, but inflict sinking instead of rupture. Dawn's skill 3 is Arcana Beats, which rolls up to 31, gaining base power from love-hate potency and coin power by consuming love-hate count. It deals extra damage based on magical arcana and love-hate potency on Dawn. The skill gives love-hate count on use and magical arcana after attack. The coins of Arcana Beats simply inflict 4 rupture. The negative skill 3 is Reversed Beats, which clashes at up to 27 power. It consumes Hysteria on use and gains clash power by Hysteria consumed. then consumes love-hate count to get more clash power. The skill deals extra damage based on love-hate potency on Dawn. Before attack, it consumes all magical arcana to gain 1 attack weight for every stack consumed. Also, if the skill consumed 3 Hysteria, it gets 1 more attack weight. By the way, the skill once again deals half damage to all sub-targets of its AoE. If the skill is only targeting one enemy, it deals more damage based on attack weight that was wasted. And if a coin is cracked, reversed beats loses 6 base power per cracked coin. On use, Dawn loses 10 SP, but at turn end, if Dawn is between -44 and -1 SP, she heals 10 SP. With additional SP healing, the further Dawn's SP is from 0. This always results in her sanity going positive, meaning Dawn leaves her negative skill state. The coins, once again, just inflict a bit of sinking. As for her defense, Dawn gets Rapid Chant, which is a clashable guard that rolls up to 15 and gains base power from Hysteria stacks. It gives Dawn love-hate count on use. Now onto her passives. In the Name of Love and Hate, Dawn gets 2 of those. The first one is always active, and it allows Dawn to get love-hate potency every time she consumes 10 love-hate count. At encounter start, she gets Hysteria and love-hate if she doesn't have those effects. When she has 0 or higher SP, she gets Here Comes Magical Girl, and at negative SP, she gets Regressive Transformation reversed instead. Dawn's SP cannot go below -40 due to her own skill effects. Her second passive requires 4 Envy Resonance, but it allows her to deal a tiny bit more damage for every love-hate potency on self. But, more importantly, it gives Dawn 1 magical arcana. As for the support passive, it requires 3 Envy Resonance, and it allows one ally with the least charge count to gain more of the effect when gaining charge count with skills. The passive also heals either the SP or the HP of the affected ally, depending on their sanity, based on their charge potency. Wow, that kit took a while to overview. However, before we go to Dawn's combat evaluation, I need to also touch up on all the unique effects she interacts with. Love-hate is unique charge, it doesn't do anything unusual. Hysteria is an effect that stacks up to 3, and its stack goes up by 1 at turn end when Dawn is below 0 SP. Otherwise, it goes down by 1. Mark of Villainy makes the enemy take 10% extra damage from Dawn, but can only be applied to one target, and stays on the first target to be marked each turn. Magical Arcana also stacks up to 3, and makes Dawn's skills deal more damage. However, at turn end, if the effect is at 3 stacks, and Dawn is above -25 SP, her SP is set to -25, sending her into her negative form instantly. Outside of this, Dawn also gets Here Comes Magical Girl and Regressive Transformation. Each of these skills gives Dawn access to one of her movesets, with Here Comes also giving her a slight scaling damage boost. Okay, now we can move on to her in combat. So, let's begin with the most important stuff. In the Name of Love and Hate, Dawn is an identity that interacts with 3 key status effects: Charge, Rupture and Sinking. However, don't let this fool you. Even though Dawn is technically a Rupture and Sinking ID, she is not someone you want to use in those teams. Her kit lacks any kind of count infliction, and ironically interacts with the most count-hungry effects in the game. Her only saving grace for Rapture is having access to Red Sheet, but that's not enough. Additionally, those teams do not provide Dawn with enough envy resonance to unleash her true power, and the two-faced nature of the identity does not allow her to inflict a given effect for the entire battle. Basically, the effects are entirely cosmetic. So that leaves us with Charge as the only effect she interacts with effectively. But before we get to exactly which variation of Charge she wants to be a part of, let's look at Dawn's core gameplay loop. She has two sets of skills, as I've already said many times, and she switches between these sets depending on her sanity. At 0 or above, she gets positive skills, and below 0, she gets negative. Both of these sets follow similar frameworks, but the main thing is that her negative skills are just kind of better. Due to the fact they're negative, they get to deal a bit more damage by always rolling the higher number, instead of incrementing each coin like positive skills do. And the more important part is that her skills 2-2 and 3-2 get access to AoE damage. Sure, they only do half the damage against sub-targets, but it's still more damage. And in the case of reversed beats, it's a lot more damage. This leads to Dawn mainly wanting to leave her positive state and get into the negatives, and stay there afterwards. To do this, you want to stack up the Magical Arcana effect, through the use of Dawn's skill 3 and Ego, but also, crucially, by activating her passive with enough envy resonance. After getting to 3 stacks, Dawn's sanity is set to -25, instantly thrusting her into the negative state. While in that state, you will begin to stack up Hysteria. Ideally, you want to hold on to your skills 2 and 3 while stacking that effect, as getting to 3 stacks unlocks attack weight for skill 2 and improves the attack weight of skill 3. Once you've got 3 Hysteria, you can let loose, using up your purple skills. However, remember that reversed beats ends the negative state when used, meaning you want to save it for last, unless you have a timing that will net great results. Once you've used your skill 3-2, Dawn is back to positive, and the vicious cycle begins anew. At the same time, you're gaining and consuming her unique charge, which slowly lets her scale up in damage, making Dawn more formidable in longer encounters. This is pretty much the gist of her kit, and the way she is played. The most important part of all of this here is that Dawn wants consistent 4 skill envy resonance to gain Magical Arcana and slightly buff up her damage. Her love for envy resonance and interactions with Charge make her a perfect fit for the Charge envy res composition. You can expect a video on this team in the coming weeks, but for now, what you should know is that this team has a ton of envy resonance, obviously, and also has units that use that resonance to get much stronger, those being the new Dawn and Middle Sinclair. Additionally, it has charge-based IDs, and the egos that hold the team together are Electric Screaming Dawn and Merceau. Dawn's version of the skill is actually incredible for this identity, as its corrosion variant gives Dawn up to 20 charge count and then consumes it, instantly providing 2 love-hate potency, which quickly scales up Dawn's damage. It's great that Dawn has access to a team like that, but if I'm being real here, the Charge Envy team is far from the best, as its over-reliance on Envy makes it difficult to fuel many egos, all the while the team itself does not have a broken damage dealer or a damaging effect like the top tier teams do. So you're either stuck using Dawn in this composition and getting her best, or you try to place her to fill a hole somewhere else, and end up not using her full potential. This part is definitely the worst thing about this new identity, as it's difficult for her to find a good home. For now, that is. In the future, things will most likely change, and Dawn will have a powerful team when we get the Ricardo identity. Surely we'll get that, right? Anyways, let's move on to the newest ego skill added alongside Dawn. The skill shares its name with the identity and is supposed to be used in tandem with it. What the skill does is it hits a large group of enemies for a bunch of damage, like most WoW tier skills do. What interests us a bit more, however, is what the skill does beyond that. Before attack, it applies Magical Girl's Chant, a strong offensive buff, to a number of allies that gets increased with Envy Resonance. The buff stacks up to 2, and you apply 2 stacks at once if Dawn is using her new identity and is in the positive form. The skill also gets attack weight from Charge or Love-Hate potency on Dawn, once again getting more if Dawn is in the positive form of the new ID. After attack, the skill consumes charge count on Dawn to heal allies, with the amount of targets increasing with Envy Res and the amount of healing increasing with charge potency. And if Dawn is wearing the Queen of Hatred suit, she also gets 1 magical arcana. The coins of the skill give Dawn charge count, inflict Mark of Villainy on the main target, and get to inflict a bit of Rapture and Rapture count. The corrosion variant of the skill has a cool name that I will not be reading out, and works differently from the Awakening. It benefits the new Dawn's negative state instead of the positive one, consumes charge count to deal more damage instead of healing, and gets buffed by Mark of Villainy and Hysteria. It also deals extra damage based on Envy Resonance. The skill gives Dawn Hysteria if she's in the negative state, and its coins give Dawn charge count, inflict Mark of Villainy, and a bit of sinking. As you can see, this version of the skill trades all of its utility for damage, making it a potentially insanely powerful weapon. But I have to say that you should remember that the ego is still exactly that, an ego, which means using the skill, especially its corrosion variant through overclocking in Dawn's negative state, will lead to a corrosion more often than not, resulting in a swift team wipe, albeit with some cool big numbers. But let me move on to the passive. The passive allows all of Dawn's identities to gain charge potency by spending charge count. No, this doesn't stack with the passive of In the Name of Love and Hate Dawn the Identity. The passive also allows charge-consuming skills to deal more damage, and crucially adds another copy of the third skill to Dawn's pool if she's using the new ID. So, how do you use the skill efficiently? Well, it's obvious that it was made specifically for the new Dawn, as it's a charge envy skill that has a bunch of effects that only this ID can activate. It's most efficient when used as a multi-target nuke against a group of enemies, which you can use in the positive state to get extra effects, while also losing sanity and getting magical arcana stacks, which can transition Dawn into her negative state. You could potentially spam this ego, and it performs quite well against a large group of targets that don't resist its damage types, but even using the ego once greatly improves Dawn, as another copy of her skill 3 is an incredible boon. That extra skill increases your damage output, which is obvious, but it also allows you to get to Dawn's negative state faster. Sadly, the extra skill cannot be used to hit back-to-back reversed beats nukes, as just one usage of the skill sends you back to positive SP. Still, it's a huge upgrade to Dawn's overall power, and the ego itself becomes a terrific tool in the already wide arsenal of Queen of Hatred Don Quixote. So let's sum this up. In the name of Love and Hate Dawn, the identity is a scaling, charge envy damage dealer that has to jump between her two states, and requires some help to reach peak performance. However, once you give her all she wants, she becomes a great AoE damage dealer that destroys mob fights, and performs very well against trio boss encounters. Additionally, her preference for staying in the negatives makes her a fantastic ego spammer, and luckily, she's got some great ego options. Between Electric Screaming and her themed ego, Dawn's scaling becomes faster and stronger, allowing her to reach a super high ceiling as long as the enemies don't die too quickly. The only thing holding this ID back right now is the fact that she is part of a weaker archetype, and building a team around her is not something I'd recommend to a new player. But even as a generalist, Dawn can pop off. As for her ego, it's a high weight buff, much like most skills at that tier, but its awakening variant also has a lot of utility, with its charge gain, healing and buff application. The corrosion is your typical high damage button, which can be risky to use but pays off tremendously when used correctly. The ego's biggest strength is its passive though, as it gives a whole other skill 3 to Dawn, increasing her power drastically. Overall, the In the Name of Love and Hate Don Quixote identity and ego set is a powerful combo that can allow you to dish out a lot of damage, but requires precise control to perform at its best. This isn't an ID you win rate with, and the ego is not something you throw out anytime you can. But even if you do that, the results won't be too bad. At this point I usually tell you if you should get the unit or not, but I am sure all of you have already spent the pools you've been saving up, so I doubt my input will change anything. And yeah, that's about it. If you disagree or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment below, and I promise to read each and every one of those. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to let me know, and if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. And don't forget to join the Discord. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!